Hey everyone, it's ByPigeon, and today I wanted to talk about player feedback in games. Quite recently, I had a friend playtest my game and give me a lot of feedback. Some of it I anticipated, but some of it was quite bizarre and not what I was expecting. I want to go deeper into this and how this impacts me and my development. First, let's talk about Overwatch. Overwatch is quite notorious for having the worst ratings known to man, but how did it happen? Now there's tons and tons of videos out there on this subject, but I think one big thing is that players never felt as if their feedback meant anything. People would be asking for things such as balance, content, and features, PvE, but Blizzard decided to go their own way, alienating their players, leading to the worst reviews on a game in Steam history. The purpose of this video isn't to deep dive into Blizzard and Overwatch. Rather, it's just a segue into my own game and my perspective on development. What is feedback like for game developers, and how does it change the development of my game? Let's find out. Testing, testing, testing. How do you know if something is good? It has to stand up against something. We have to test it. And video games are no different. The only way my prototypes are going to be any good is if I actively try to get it out in front of people, for them to give me feedback on what's good, what's not so good, and what should be changed. I had this area in the game that I've shared with you guys. I like to call it the forest area, where we get our quests from. What I realized during the playtest though was that he never went up to receive his first quest at the statue. There was nothing in the game prompting him to go in that direction, so he just missed a big part of the game right off the bat. This isn't something my friend gave me as feedback. Rather, it was more like this. I have this super important mechanic in my game that ties in with overall progression and rewards. However, my friend unknowingly missed it. As a developer, this is something that should not happen, which means that this needs high priority fixing. And so this kind of feedback, I guess I'll call it observational feedback. It isn't directly from the playtester, but it's because of how the playtester plays the game that I receive feedback. So then what the heck did I do? Well, it was a really janky fix, but I created a cutscene with a few lines of monologue. Mind you, I've never created a cutscene like this with proper dialogue before, so I don't think it looks very good in a vacuum, out of a vacuum, but I know that by having this in the game, it will point any future players towards the statue, which is all I need. That then buys me a little bit of time to work on it further and polish it up so that it looks nice. And you know that I can't let the playtest end there, so I had to intervene and help out my friend by guiding him towards the statue. And he did that, and he took up his first quest, which was pretty simple, but as I anticipated, got stuck on the very next quest. All because of the firefly. At first, it was a visual thing. He saw the picture but couldn't make out that the very obvious firefly was a firefly. It was enough of a challenge that I brought in tooltips for the names of the quest items after he requested it. And that is the second type of feedback and the more common of the bunch. It's just plain old feedback. Now, part of receiving feedback is acknowledging that there are issues in the game. It's not the player's fault that they couldn't identify what the item was and where they needed to go. They didn't have the extensive playtesting experience that I have, or the game knowledge, because I did develop all the code and I drew everything. If anything, it must have been frustrating to play the game in this state without any help. So where exactly does he need to go? I told him fireflies come out at night. The problem, funny enough, is that it's hard to get to night. The game starts at 6 AM, which is right when day starts, right when night ends. You might run around the house, check out a couple items or whatever. You head outside to explore, and that might take up a little bit more time. However, you're going to be using up your energy as you explore, and if you do that too much, you won't make nighttime. And even if you did, you would have no energy left to explore at that time. So I decided to make a sleeping in option at the bed so that you could get slightly closer to night. You hit that and then it rolls a new day. starting at the time you selected. However, we still have a ton of time to burn until 10, so I added a bunch of tasks you could do. Currently, they don't do anything except roll the clock forward, but I've got some plans on how to make them cooler. You do all the tasks and go explore a bit until hopefully it gets to night, and then you find your firefly. Wow, everything is so nice and swell. Go home, identify that, and turn it in, right? Wrong. That right there is game knowledge. That right there is developer experience. What actually happened is the sad truth. The homie woke up, checked out the house, and hit the task screen. He saw the tasks and hit one of them. The screen faded black, then back to color, and he went, "What?" He asked me if the tasks did anything. He then let me know that he wanted some player feedback on how much energy the task costed him. He also thought that potentially the task might be something he starts, and then he has to go outside to actually do the task, like, "Hey, backyard maintenance, I need to go to the backyard," or maybe I need to go out of the house. And that's when I realized that, hey, the tasks need to give the player some feedback on what happened. I need to clearly indicate that time is moving forward if you do it. That is the purpose of the task. So I added a couple panels showing task complete to indicate the task progress. I made a button that the player needs to press to acknowledge that time has passed by a certain amount. For me, it was perfectly clear when I designed it because it was for that purpose, but to anyone testing, it might have been just as clear as mud. You guys might have caught the last thing that I needed to fix, but in case you didn't, I increased the amount of player feedback on day versus night, especially while in the house. My playtester asked me when night was. This is actually a pretty important request because it signals that the day cycles aren't intuitive. The first thing I noticed was that the task screen changed time by huge amounts, but there was no player feedback from inside the house. To fix this, I pulled up Sprite and worked on a couple more tile sets so that my backyard grass changes color based on the time. Getting this in, it feels super nice that the game kind of responds when I complete a task and acknowledge that the time has shifted. The game also provides that additional feedback that, hey, look, the grass changed from green to yellow or yellow to blue. I'm still dialing in the color of the grass. Not sure how much I'm liking the yellow or the blueness of it, but a prototype is a prototype and I think it really helps. The next thing I did was a bit more of a global change. I decided that I wanted the players to be reminded of the day-night cycle by adding a tiny icon next to the time, indicating the time of day. This is so that players will intuitively see the time and associate it with a certain time of day. Over playtime, players will start to build a habit on roughly when they will expect a certain time of day to come about. Say, for example, the player might have missed when exactly it became night, but they remember that they went out around 11 p.m., so they'll know it was around that time. It's a bit more of a loose connection, and I want to make it more proper, but that, I think, comes later with like tutorials and so on and so forth. This already turned into so much feedback, and crazy enough, there was a lot more. It will always be a mix of player feedback and what I glean from the playtest. It's important to ask questions as well to better understand the nature of your game and recognize player priorities. I like to make little forms to highlight the experience so that I can always refer back to this point in my game. Hey, this is what this tester said about my game. This is how the game was, and by spending some time doing so, I can also use this as a nice checklist to track issues that I need to work on in my game. I detailed out each section as I mentioned, but also set a priority to each of the categories for what I needed to fix and in what order. And as always, when people test the game, they're going to notice bugs. I had a bunch of those, so I spent a good amount of time squashing them. Just one playtest let me receive this much feedback and work. that it took me a long time for me to continue developing the game in terms of content. Hopefully you all have seen how important this is to making your prototypes and games bulletproof. They say test early, test often, and that definitely holds true for game development. As a side note, if you're interested in Godot or my game, definitely check out my links below. I've created a Discord server you can join if you want, and maybe you guys can help me test my games in the future, or definitely ask any questions about Godot or my game. Thank you all for watching. I'm looking more into streaming, so keep tuned on the channel. I'll probably post when I'm going to stream, and I'll see you all soon.